And Ryan, you and I were talking about this before the show, and the biggest one for us was in order to truly compete for a championship, right? And that's the goal. That's the standard, right? It's not that, well, 10-2 is perfectly fine. No, this goals champion. It's Notre Dame. The goals are championships. That I think that you need stars. And I think this is especially true on defense. And one of the things Brian Kelly said a number of years ago that is one of the most true things he ever said. He said, look, I can scheme my way to success on offense. Now, he didn't, but theoretically that is true. He says, but on defense, you need, and I'm going to just paraphrase and put it in my language, but you need dudes on defense. You can scheme your way into a certain level of success, but it's going to be capped based on your talent level. And I think we've seen that in past years, right? Where Notre Dame was really good on defense and statistically in 2019, they were statistically really good in 2020. They ended up, what's funny is for all the flack that they caught last year because of a couple bad games, that was one of statistically their best defenses in the last 5 years, points and yards and all that type of stuff. But the problem is when they played against the better teams on the schedule, they weren't good enough. And I think a big reason why is because the upper level of the talent was not there. I thought they got as much as they could in most years out of the team from a coaching standpoint. I think one of the biggest differences for me, Ryan, going into the season is the star power, the potential for star power at Notre Dame in 2022. And there's still some questions guys got to step into that role, but the potential for star power in 2022 is significantly greater than it's been, I would argue, in a decade, going back to 2012. I think the only year that you maybe could debate with that is maybe 2018 and maybe 2015 because you had Jalen Smith and those type of guys, but the coaching held back that 2015 team. But I think those are the only years that you could potentially say Notre Dame had as much star power. And the biggest difference between this dynamic in any defense other than 2018, even 2012, is the star power in this class, and the potential for star power on this defense is on all three levels, and that's what makes it unique, or could make it unique if it turns out to be true.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you phrased that perfectly, Brian. I mean, where you look at this team right now from a tangible understanding of who is a star on this team, I think that Isaiah Foskey has clearly taken on that mantle as the star of the defense. And then you have Brandon Joseph, who transferred from Northwestern at safety, 9 interceptions the last 2 years, was a preseason All-American last year. Like, he's a fantastic football player when he's playing within himself. So you look at those two players, you're like, star. What we saw the glimpses of Cam Hart in his first year as a starter, I think the kid can be a star. Like, there's no doubt about it. Just what we saw last year, 6'2" and a half, 4.4 speed, athletic as anything, former wide receiver, obviously early on in his Notre Dame career, ball skills. There's everything there for him to also be a star on this team. And then you have Jason Adamalola, who, again, does he need to finish more? Sure.
Yeah.
But disruption last year, he caused issues every single game, it felt like, right? Like, he's just such a difficult player. And if he takes that next step and he does finish more plays, then he's a superstar potentially as well.
Right.
The key to this team, though, the key, in my opinion, and I would love to hear your 2 cents on this, Brian. If Isaiah Foskey's the same player as last year, he's still a great player.
He's a star.
Right? He's a star.
Right.
If Brandon Joseph is what he was at Northwestern, he's a star.
Yep.
If Cam Hart is what he was last year, he's a good to very good football player.
Yeah.
No doubt. Jason Adamalola, same thing. Good to very good football player at worst if he stays the same. The key here is the guy that is the most unknown quantity right now that we're excited about is Marist Liufau on the second level. That kid, if he is remotely what we think he can be, then you're talking about not just a star on every level. You're talking about a difference-making star on every level that can create so many big plays and has length on the second level that Notre Dame, honestly, just hasn't had over the last couple of years. Like, let's call it what it is. Like, they just have not had this combination of length and explosiveness on the second level outside of him playing
not since 2018.
Right.
Not, and to your point, the thing is they've had a guy like that, right? Jeremiah was that way in 19 and 20. I think where I'm reading your comments is you already have an expectation of J.D. Bertrand and Jack Kaiser being good football players this year. Jack was a
100%.
good football player last year. J.D. was a good football player the year before. The quality has not been to the complementary players have not been this good since in a couple years. Not that Drew White was a fine football player,
Good
right? I
player.
mean,
Yeah,
but
sure.
we think the level's raised. We think Jack's going to be even better this year. We think JD's going to be even better this year because he's in a better position. And if he isn't starting, that means he got beat out by somebody even better, which again raises the level of what we expect those positions to be. The question is, can you then have that star player? And even bigger is that star player inside. And with all due respect to Jeremiah Usu-Koromo, who is a phenomenal player, I'm not saying that Marist is going to be better than Jeremiah. What I'm saying, however, is that I think Marist is at a position that can impact the game even more than Jeremiah. Because you could game plan away from Jeremiah. It's hard to game plan from an inside linebacker. It is. And so I think to your point, if Marist is the guy that we keep hearing he's going to be, and again, these are ifs, right? We need to see it. We're just talking about what we've heard and what we saw in the spring. If he is that guy. And I talked to a source the other day, and I'm going to have an intel piece on the team coming out hopefully by Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening, which is what I do every year. Just get as much intel on the team going into the season as I can. It'll only be on the message board, so you're going to want to sign up for that. But the one thing I heard about Marist is I've heard this word now. 3 different people inside the program have told me this. The dude is special. Right? Not like, no, hey, we're expecting a big year. We think he's really, his experience is there, and he's doing that. It's the same. That dude is special. That dude is special. And I've heard it from people that sources that I have that are associated with Notre Dame, the team, right? Like people that are employed at Notre Dame. And I've heard that also from people that are associated with players. And the reason that I think that's important to note is because you're always going to get some level of, from certain sources, you're always going to get some level of this is the sort of what we want out there, right?
Sure.
When you talk to the players or people associated with the players, you get a little bit more of a raw take if you have a good relationship with them. And that's what I keep hearing is this kid is going to be special. This kid is a star. This kid is a difference maker. This kid, and you're talking about people that play with Jeremiah Usu-Koromoa.
Right.
So they know what special looks like, is my point. They know what a dude looks like. And so if he steps up, then all of a sudden Marist and JD, if they can play with discipline, that's the only big question I would still have, is Marist is going to make some highlight reel game-changing plays this year, but you also hope that the game-changing plays don't include him fitting the wrong gap, him going the wrong direction, because I didn't say game-changing for Notre Dame, right? Hopefully they are only game-changing for Notre Dame. But he's got to play with more discipline. And if he does, he's got a chance to be a special, special player. And then you add that to what we expect from JD or the Mike linebacker in general, Jack Kaiser and Jordan Patojo and Jalen Sneed, a rover. You're not talking about the second level of your defense becoming a strength combined with what we already know up front, which we'll get to in a second. But at that point in time, you don't necessarily need Cam Hart and so-and-so in the secondary and Ramon Henderson and Clarence Lewis or Tariq Brazy to be stars. It just be good, right? Just be good. But if you get both to be that kind of guy, then all of a sudden you're like, okay, you've got because here's the thing. We saw from Cam in flashes last year, he's a game changer. And what I mean by that is 2 things. A cornerback being a game changer can be 1 of 2 things. If you throw at him, he's going to make you pay. Cam did that last year. Or he's a game changer because teams just say, I'm not going at 5. And we saw that now as well at times last season. And so he can be that guy. Now, consistency is going to be key for him, right? That's going to be the big key for Cam Hart. But when you can have a guy on the perimeter, on the back end, and then on the inside that are game changers, that's how you can get to the point where you have a defense, Ryan, that can say, hey, we can go toe-to-toe with Ohio State or Clemson or USC or Alabama or Oklahoma or whoever that you may face when you get to that next level. And that's why it's important, because to win those games at the end of the day, you need game changers. You need stars, and you need your stars to play like stars. And I think that's the thing for me that makes me kind of fired up about what this defense could be this season because of those additions. And I'm going to make a bold statement, and this is what I want you to respond to as well. You can go with what you're about to say.
Yep.
I will not be shocked if Brandon Joseph in 2022 is better than Kyle Hamilton in 2021. And I'll explain why if you need me to elaborate a little bit on that.
Well, the first thing I was going to say is typically when a team has, let's just say, one superstar on defense, you can kind of game plan to get around
Sure.
them, right? Like you can
Cincinnati did that
avoid
with Isaiah Foskey last year.
100%. Like you can avoid that guy. But when you have a player on every single level that you could quantify as a difference maker, as a elite, potentially elite football player, good luck trying to avoid all those guys. Like if you have a guy at free safety, will linebacker, defensive tackle, defensive end, and corner that are all playing at a high level, who are you avoiding? Like at that point, it's just almost an impossible task at that point, right? So, and to your question, Brian, I think I said that originally when we did a show after Brandon Joseph had transferred. Someone asked, can this safety position be better with him compared to Kyle Hamilton? And my answer is yes. And it's not that he's a better player than Kyle Hamilton. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that Brandon Joseph gives you more upside as a pass coverage player than a Kyle Hamilton, which is going to make everyone around you better. Like you could look at Brandon Joseph and be like, hey, Brandon, go play single high free safety and let everybody else just kind of roam and do their job and, just kind of freelance a little bit more. And Brandon Joseph can do it. And then Brandon Joseph has just an insane ability to create big plays. Like in the biggest moments, I think of the Ohio State game a couple years ago when Northwestern was actually a good football team, not this past year when they were terrible. That one-handed interception covering Garrett Wilson from the slot of all people who just went top 10 in the 2022 NFL draft, right? So this kid's a potentially special player. And from working from depth, he's a better player than Kyle Hamilton. Now, is he going to do the same things in the box as Kyle Hamilton? No. Is he going to do some of the things that you see with the length that Kyle Hamilton can do? No.
Here's
But
my
can
thing,
he?
though, Ryan. Here's my
Yeah,
thing on that. I want to respond to that because here's what I'm
sure.
talking about. I'm not saying that they're going to be the same player. They don't need to be. And I'm not even saying he's going to be better at certain things. But here's the reality. And for people to say, well, Kyle's only played this amount. I'm not talking about what he was for the entire season. I'm talking about what he was when he was on the field. Last year was Kyle Hamilton's worst season, in my opinion. He was an All-American by reputation only. He made some really crazy highlight reel throws. But teams did not shy away from Kyle Hamilton last year. Toledo went after Kyle Hamilton, right? Cincinnati went after Kyle Hamilton with the game on the line. It was 17-13 and they went after Kyle Hamilton. You know what I mean? And so to me, Kyle played for Kyle, to be honest with you. And he just wasn't that good last year, in my opinion. Now, he was good. He was impactful, but he's very inconsistent. And he was, like he's got really good cover potential, but it just seemed like he wasn't all that interested in covering last year.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, when I look at Brandon Joseph, I see a guy that is a lot more steady on a play by play basis. He may not make the going from the back hash to the other side and making the pick, but I also don't see Brandon Joseph ripping his helmet off and getting a 15-yard penalty either. And that was to me what summarized Kyle's year last year was Kyle was playing for Kyle, and Brandon, I think, will fit into the team. So I think his overall play from a beginning to end of the season standpoint, the more and more you break down the film of Kyle Hamilton, you saw like he was a tremendous player and tremendous. Let me rephrase. He was a tremendous talent, but he was a much better player in 2020 than he was last year, in my opinion. Much better player. I'm just in the games he played. I'm not talking about when he only played 7. Just in the games where he was on the field.
Sure.
He was not the player last year that he was the year before. And teams did not fear him last year the way that they did the year before. And that's a very telling thing. A very telling thing.
Yeah. And I mean, to your point is Brandon Joseph isn't going to make the backside hash, play against Florida State. Not many other people are either, right? So like, it's not a big, like, oh my God, Brandon Joseph can't make that play. There's only a couple people on earth that could probably make that play, if we're being honest, which is what made
Ramon
Kyle
Henderson
Hamilton special. Right. Well, little different, but sure. We get there. We get there with that one. But
I'm talking about the play he had against Virginia.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was a great play. It was a great play. There's no doubt. Kyle Hamilton was a special talent. Was he a special football player all the time? No, I agree with you on that. I agree 100% with it. Brandon Joseph was a better football player in 2020 than Kyle Hamilton has been at Notre Dame, in my
Mhm.
opinion. I don't know if you agree with that, but like his season that he had with Northwestern as a redshirt freshman was a special season.
Yeah.
He was fantastic that year.
Yeah.
The only concern I have about Brandon Joseph is he needs to be a consistent tackler. And I
Yes.
think that that's more a technical perspective than a 1-2 perspective or an inability to
Yep.
tackle. But if he cleans that up, he's a
Yep.
special player in the pass game, like
And
pass coverage, big
yep.
time.
And that's why I said he'll be better than Kyle was last year. Because Kyle in 2020 was a much better player. And it was because Kyle was a more consistent tackler. He was a more consistent player in coverage. And so, yes, you are correct. I would say that is he has to clean that up. And that's true for the whole defense. I think the other thing is I do think in order for Notre Dame to maximize its potential, they need a second defensive lineman to step up and be a star. Now, the caveat for me is I don't think they necessarily need it one guy to do it every game, though one guy, they need some guy to step up and do it every game. Whether it's Jason Adamiola 1 week, Riley Mills the next week, Justin Adamiola the next week, Howard Cross the next week, Jacob Lacey the next. And I'm not talking about stepping up as big plays, but guys just come out and like, hey, if you're gonna, send your protection over here, then you're not going to block me one-on-one.